We're seeing in a nation where women make up over 51% of the population, the gender pay gap remains a harsh reality. And though equality is enshrined in the law, the lived experience tells a very different story. South African women endure systemic barriers, from inflexible work arrangements to undervalued care roles, reinforced by entrenched misogyny. Laws alone don't close wage gaps. Well, so reflects Advocate Brenda Madumise-Pajibo, of course, director at Wise for Africa. In her opinion piece that she penned thoughts to paper on the 22nd of August, and joins us virtually now perhaps to unpack a little bit further. So on that note, Advocate Brenda, good morning. I dare say good morning, but good morning, and thank you for your time at this hour. Just in your piece, I mean, you opened with a poignant call to the president. And I wonder if you could explain why you believe that raising the question of the gender pay gap in the national dialogue risks being performative rather than substantive.
So good morning, Lizelle, and thanks for having me. I think for me, what prompted me to put my thoughts to paper and respond to the president making the assertions that he made at the opening of that dialogue was precisely the issue of so here's a president who has been at the helm for a long time. Did he think by asking those questions he's triggering the conversation and the dialogue that he wants? Or was Mr. President grandstanding and being performative, right? And you can decide for yourself which one you prefer, right? For me, I think it was grandstanding and performative and playing up to the gallery, precisely because I think the president could have asked differently and, in fact, introspect and say, why have I failed as a leader of this country in ensuring that we end poverty? Why have I failed in the many years that we have been in power and running the administration of this country? Why is it that the inequality still exists and the gap widens? Why is it that women still do not get equal pay for equal work done? So for me, he should have self-introspected and looked at his role as a leader, and not pose those questions in isolation of that and pretend as if he doesn't know why we have all these ills in society.
Well, Advocate Brenda, to your point, there are still more questions than answers that obviously have been posed, just given the reality on the ground. And despite landmark legislation, you've got dialogue platforms. I mean, in reality, the pay gap still persists. And from your vantage point, what do you think are the disconnects between policy and implementation in this day and age?
Lizelle, you're asking a question that South Africans have been asking. We have those, colorful policies, they're on paper.
Yes.
But it does not translate into practice, right? It doesn't translate to the lived experiences of many South Africans. So why is it that is the case? So once you decide on a policy, you know what is the problem that you are trying to solve, right? And sometimes that policy has to deal with subsets of the question that you are trying to solve, or the problem that you are trying to solve, right? So when you talk a policy on equality and equity, right, it's about equality and it's about fairness, right? What are we trying what is the problem that we're trying to solve? We're trying to solve a problem over 100 years of systemic exclusion of one part of the population. It's discrimination that is pervasive, that is endemic in our country. You have a sexism that continues unabated. So if your policy is supposed to address all of that, your response on the ground should be that everything that you do is to advance that equality and equity. So why is it that implementation of policy has failed in the 30 years that we have had a constitution and the supporting legislation to enhance and end discrimination of women and end sexism and address misogyny in its entirety? Yes. It's precisely because the individuals that are given that responsibility to implement, they themselves are beneficiaries of. They think that once you do that, they are at the risk of losing the benefits that they've had for a long time. But you also have an economy that is structured in such a way that is not willing to support equality and equity, right? It's profit driven. It's boys clubs, or a boys club that is Anglo-Saxon. They call themselves WASPs, and continues to enjoy that privilege, and they want to exclude the rest of us from it because it has benefited them for a long time, and it keeps them, giving them power and control and making them wealthier and wealthier.
Yeah, it's not about pay gaps per se or salaries. It is about that power dynamic. And to your point, the social constructs of patriarchy, white supremacy that still pervade the roles and responsibilities, the mental labor that is unaccounted for, the burden of care as well. I mean, these are concepts that you also explore. The Boys Club. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about that, because you emphasized the unpaid care work, the insufficient support for mothers that also underlie this pay gap, the inflexible working structures that continue to impact women's economic opportunities at large.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so if you look at how economies are structured in the world, and structured by people who don't have the responsibility of the care that women are expected to take care, to take care of either children, to take care of older people, and all of that, right? So it's structured in such a way that that structuring is exclusive already, right? So we're going to bring you in, but not fully into what we have structured, because I can afford to be a CEO of a company and not worry about who takes care of the home, right? I can go to 20 trips in a month because I know that there's someone else who is making sure that everything is working in the home. Women don't have that luxury, right? Because if they have this, when they pursue a career, all of these things come in as barriers to them moving forward in their careers. For the longest of time, we had challenges of companies employing women because they believe that we are not investing in women because the woman is going to be away for another 9 months because they have to go and give birth. So we are not comfortable in employing as many women as we can. In fact, that continues, but in a very subtle way, right? It's no longer overt, right? But we still don't want to employ women because we think it's not a good investment. Because they are going to leave. In fact, they're asking for more. So it's 9 months plus, right?
Yeah.
So if we can help it, we don't want to have them in our organizations or in our companies. But we know we're being forced to have them. So it's a compliance issue more than looking at it as a business, being good for business. Right? So don't look at women as a nuisance and a compliance issue. Look at it as part of making sure that your business flourish, right? Because we are the consumers, right? We make decisions as women, as mothers, on and making these companies rich, by the way. So if we were to withhold our buying power as women, most companies will fold.
Well,
right?
Absolutely. Women form the backbone of societies, black women for that matter. And obviously, when more than half of your population is discriminated and, is obviously experiencing such harsh realities, you're actually at a disadvantage as a society as well. And we've seen how this played out because, to your point, it's subtly, that discrimination pervades. There's notions of violence, male violence, that also impacts women's experiences. And this happens across sectors as well, from education to transport as well. And I wonder if you can explore why we cannot treat this in isolation any longer.
And that's the point. We have been treating it in isolation for long, right?
Yes.
So if we are going to go on these multiple dialogues that are being planned in this country, the conversations in every single sector that forms part of this convention, the gender equality and equity must be cross-cutting in those conversations. It cannot be put alongside a women's sector, and that women must deal with it. It cuts across. It deals with the foundations of how a society is structured, how an economy is structured, it must be addressed across the board, and it's a cross-cutting issue. So that's what that needs to happen. And it has to happen not just during the dialogues. It must happen with organizations when they're grappling with their investment strategy, their growth strategy. We're in government when they're talking about how to create more infrastructure projects. It has to be in all of that, right? When you are designing a transport system, you need to take that into consideration on how women use a public transport system. I need to remind people about, if you look at what's happening now with AI and technology coming in, the service industry is going to be mostly affected, and that's where you find majority Black women in the service industry. The number of women who are going to lose their jobs are Black women.
Yeah.
And what is our plan as a country to address that now? Not when when Pick n Pay introduce cashless systems, when Checkers or Woolworths. Now, what are we going to do? Because that is coming. And it's majority Black women who are found in the service industry, right?
Well, Brenda, obviously there's more questions and answers, and many more conversations that need to happen. Thank you for penning thoughts to paper and being part of these pertinent chats and for raising that alarm. We're going to leave a conversation. The Advocate Brenda Madumise-Pajibo, Director at Wise for Africa. She wrote an opinion piece. It's called Mr. President, the gender pay gap is real for South African women, published on the 22nd of August, 2025. Joined us to unpack some of her thoughts and themes there.